Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Very fired up for today's edition of the College Draft Podcast because it's our first time officially turning the page. After the 2022 draft, you can go back and listen or watch any of the episodes, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, or wherever you listen to the shows, and you can hear our breakdown of every single NFL team's draft picks, as well as Emory's undrafted free agent gems, which he absolutely specializes in. Today is our first time turning the page and looking at the prospects for the 2023 NFL Draft. We will start with the Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, even TikTok. You can hit me up at Ross Tucker NFL. He's at F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. And I don't know, Emory, is the draft guide link ready yet for 2023?
Not yet, because people.
Okay, I won't say it then. I won't say it.
Not yet.
You tell me when it's ready, when the link is ready, so people can get their pre-orders in, since today is our first day talking about the 2023 NFL Draft. And we'll start with the ACC, Emory. This is how we do it. You pick, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you pick essentially, is it your top 10 prospects, your 10 favorite prospects? What is this list of 10 guys you send me every week?
It's 10 of prospects to get to know. So, we don't rank them this early. It's more about like, here are 10 intriguing names or interesting names to get to know. And when we look at the ACC, I feel like it's a quarterbacks conference, right? And there's some guys that I probably didn't put in that more people talk about. There's a lot of quarterbacks this year in the ACC.
Yeah, there really are. So these are not like, this is not in any particular order.
Right. This is like as they pop up in my head as I'm sending you the email.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Is it fair to say you think these are the 10 best prospects in the ACC or not necessarily?
I would say this. The first dude that popped in my head is the best dude in the ACC, in my opinion. That I do know.
That would be Clemson defensive lineman Bryan Bresee, the former number 1 ranked recruit in the country, coming off an injury last year, Emory. You still are very high on him.
Yeah, when the recruiting services get it right, they get it right, man, because he plays like how we used to remember clear-cut 5-star number 1 overall prospects play, right? When you think of our time, you think of the Julius Peppers, the LeVar Arringtons, the Ronald Currys, when Parade All-Americans meant something, when USA Today All-Americans meant something. This dude was dominant from day one. And it was unfortunate to see him tear his ACL because you thought that looked benign. And how is he hurt? And so you're glad it happened when it did, because now it gave him that recovery time to get back out there. But you talk about dominant at the point of attack, great versus the run, knack for making the big play, pressure player. This dude, health permitting, should be a top 10 pick.
What do you see him as at the next level? D-tackle? He kind of reminds me of J.J. Watt a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of, I was about to go Cam Hayward. It's somewhere on that spectrum where you can see him playing either inside or outside as a 5 tech, or as your base defensive end, your strong side defensive end, where you're asking him to really hold down the fort and force the offense to go back the other side. I like this dude's ability, man. Like it's good to see someone, and this is something that I noticed when he came in. He had really good technique, and that's rare to see for a high school player going into college. but also a testament to the type of coaching he got down there at Clemson, to where he was really able to elevate his game as a true freshman and got better every year. So I'm excited to see him this season. I wouldn't even, I know college coaches hate if I say this, but if I were him, I wouldn't rush back out there on the field. I would make sure I'm fully healthy and really kind of, work myself back into game shape and give the guy behind me a lot of opportunity to get some reps in here, because what he has put on film already to show that you're healthy, but what he's put on film already to me is more than enough to carry him throughout this process.
Wow. You're right, man. There's a lot of returning starters at quarterback in the ACC, a lot of name guys. I think the guy I see getting ranked the highest in a lot of these mock drafts is Phil Jurkovec, the quarterback from Boston College.
Yeah, there were talks about him going into last season or earlier in the season. He may come out early in the draft. I thought that was a little bit too far-fetched. I didn't think he was that great earlier in the season, but then he gets hurt and he comes back and doesn't play as well. But I feel like there's enough there to where you kind of like his game. You can see a pathway for him to be a solid player at the pro level. He's a good athlete. I think he's more streaky than anything. So you want to see him this year, flatline his play, be a little bit more consistent, and help elevate Boston College, because Boston College has a great receiver out there on the perimeter too. So we'll see if Jurkovec can really elevate his play, flatline his play. But there's enough tools on the table that you like what he has. You like the fearlessness, but he also is a little reckless too. With his body and with the football, you want to see all of that kind of stabilize, and that way he can really elevate his play.
What about a guy that I felt like came out of nowhere last year? I mean, I never even heard of him. All of a sudden, I was watching some games. He was lighting people up. Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami quarterback.
And you was hoping that, we've seen this before with recent Miami Hurricane quarterbacks. They had that one good game, and all of a sudden, their stock is elevated, right? Because everybody wants Miami to be good. And I feel the same way. When Miami is great, college football just seems to be a little bit better. But Van Dyke actually can play. You want to see him get better from an accuracy perspective. Now, he was able to light up some teams toward the back end of the season. His touchdown to interception ratio is impressive. So he had a great foundation last year and strung together some good games. So now, okay, what can you do when the expectations for you are high? And if he wants to really elevate and justify, a lot of people saying that he could be one of these first round quarterbacks that people are looking at in 2023, accuracy, consistency within that accuracy is going to be where he has to really grow his game going into. This is the thing too, man. I don't know if these dudes are sophomores, juniors, or seniors, man. COVID has really threw off everything, because some guys are here listed as seniors. Then you look at other places, they're listed as juniors. Who knows, man? All these dudes could even come back to school. So I'm tired of this classification thing. I really wish we can finally get back to neutral and build from there, because I don't know if this dude's a true sophomore. He might even still be in high school. Who knows?
It's a great point. And here's the thing, and this calling college games as well. Different schools list it differently. So some schools list it by their academic standing, and they'll say senior, and the guy has 3 years eligibility left. Others list them by eligibility remaining. So the guy's been there 5 years, and they'll be like, oh, no, he's a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. You're like, wait, what? So that's a really funny point, Emory. Honestly, until everybody's used the COVID year, I'm not even worrying about what year they are. As long as I know they're eligible or for the draft or not, like Clemson D lineman Myles Murphy.
Now, we talk about Bresee being a top 10 pick. Hey, man, Murphy might flirt with that conversation too, with how often he set up shop behind the opposing line of scrimmage. Let's say 14 and a half TFLs or something like that, sacks. To me, Clemson's defensive line is going to what carries them this year in the conference, because everywhere else around there is kind of questionable. But Murphy to me is a tremendous player. He's for sure first round pick. But it's funny that his teammate came into my mind first before he did. And he had, a really strong season. So I like him. I like his ability to work with his hands and get to the quarterback. Good point of attack strength as well. So big fan of Myles Murphy and what he brings to the table.
What about Malik Cunningham? Man, I did one of their games last year in Louisville. Louisville Clemson. I did the Louisville Clemson game. And Malik Cunningham, Emory, is electric. I mean, he is fast.
I want to see he had 20 rushing.
He kind of reminds me of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, if you just walk past the TV, you're like, oh, they replaying this Lamar Jackson game when they played XYZ team. And no, it's Malik Cunningham. And I'm glad this last year we saw him grow in certain areas of the passing game, which is something that I had questions about 2 years ago. It's like, he's a little bit streaky, not really the polished guy. We saw growth in that area to go along with him embracing his skill set as a runner. He led the nation in rushing for quarterbacks, had 20 rushing touchdowns. So if he can continue to progress, within the passing game and let his running game just stay what it is, he's elevating his stock, because I thought he had a lot of hype in 2020, and it didn't work out for him that year. Last year, he kind of flew under the radar a little bit, and kind of got better. So I'm excited to see what he does this year. And this could be one of these surprise players that we're talking about toward the, back end of the season and going into the draft process as someone that has really opened some eyes in the eyes of scouts.
What about the kid from Clemson? This feels like it should be a long conversation. DJ Uiagalelei had that unbelievable game against Notre Dame as a true freshman when Lawrence was hurt. And I think as a result, there were huge expectations for him going into last year that never really happened for him. He was pretty inconsistent. He's big. He's got some Dante Culpepper vibes to him. But obviously Clemson's offense was not the same.
Yeah, and I'm glad you prefaced it by saying long conversation, because if you guys listened to last week's show when we talked about the USFL, XFL, if I'm DJ Uiagalelei, I bypass my senior year. And I'm not saying go to the NFL, because I feel like if he has another year like he did last year, he won't get drafted. But here's an opportunity for you to go get better playing pro ball, whether that's XFL, USFL, because you're right. He has some Dante Culpepper ability with his ability as a runner and a big guy. I'm shocked they don't use him more as a runner within that offense. I thought they'd probably try to use him more so as a passer, because it's weird, because as a runner, he's kind of like Dante Culpepper. As a passer, he's kind of like Tony Banks, where he gets outside the pocket, and on rollout passes, he's phenomenal, right? He has a live arm, can really drive the ball like Tony Banks used to be able to do when he was at Michigan State and with the St. Louis Rams. But the consistency within the pocket has to improve. And I feel like he's kind of maxed as long as he stays at Clemson. So I threw him on here because he would be, in my opinion, the case study for, a guy playing this season as a junior or a sophomore, whatever the kid is. We talked about that earlier with COVID. But hey, man, I don't think I can get better. I don't know if going to another college is the right thing to do. So maybe let me declare early and take my chances to go play in the XFL or USFL against pro talent, and then let the NFL evaluate me from there, and then make the move. Because yes, he has tons of talent, physical, big, rocket arm. We saw flashes of success. Why can't we tap into that? And maybe a pro coach can.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like you're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit. Like, let's see how he plays this year, right? I mean, if he plays awesome, he might not have to do that.
True.
If he plays terrible, then maybe it is a good idea.
Right. And here's the thing too. because the COVID year kind of reset everybody, he may be eligible for the draft. And if he has a bounce back season, then we could see him catapult into the NFL draft, I believe. So, I feel like for him, and I hate to use, use hyperbole, but it's kind of a big year for him, right? Because we have a great freshman year, bad, sophomore season. This year could be the deciding factor. Maybe last year was an anomaly or a sign of things to come. And that's why this season is big for him, because he has a chance to rewrite that narrative about him. Because, man, if he doesn't play well, now Clemson has to depend on the freshman that they brought in. Granted, talented 5-star quarterback, I get all that, but you're still depending on a freshman to come in and help lead what probably is a pedestrian offense. So you need Uiagalelei to really recapture that magic. And remember, he was one of the first players to take advantage of this NIL stuff. Remember, he got that big deal from Dr. Pepper and going into last season and didn't play as well. So now it's kind of like, you have all these questions surrounding him. So he is probably one of the more interesting players to discuss entering this college football season.
There is no question. There's also no question, Emory, that if you're like me and you wear a suit a decent amount in the summer, for me, it's been a couple speaking engagements. It's been my in-laws' anniversary party. It is so nice to get the lightweight linen and breathable cotton fabrics that you can get from Express. They've got new hues, fresh silhouettes. You can mix and match for endless outfits. I'm more conservative, I guess. I'm more a full monochrome look. But the key, you don't want to be wearing one of those heavy suits in the summer. Get the lightweight linen and breathable cotton fabrics. Find something for every destination at Express, online or in store. Okay, let's get to a wide receiver, Tyler Hudson from Louisville, on the other end of those Malik Cunningham passes.
Well, you know why we have to bring up Tyler Hudson is because clearly is not because of what he done at Louisville, because this is his first year. It's going to be because he's an FCS guy. And who knows more about FCS guys than yours truly over here? He was stellar at Central Arkansas. Now the whole country is going to get to know Tyler Hudson and how great he was. He played with LaJuan Whittingham at Central Arkansas. Braylon Smith was the quarterback. They performed a heck of a duo. Braylon Smith graduated. Whittingham went on to play. I forgot which NFL team he's on as a undrafted free agent, but Hudson was able to transfer up. And I think he's going to be the breakout star in his passing game. Like you said, catching on the receiving end of those Malik Cunningham passes. This dude can really get out and get deep down the field. He can lay out for passes. Remember the receiver for Rice, Jared Dillard? This is who Hudson reminds me of. A guy that just finds the sticks, finds first downs, doesn't mind laying out for passes. Big fan of his game. I'm excited for him this year because now the rest of the country will get to know about him as we did at the FCS level.
All right, so this next guy I'm really interested in. He's a South Jersey guy that, man, every time I watch NC State play, he's good. I think he can play. His name's Devin Leary. I know they love him. I think it's interesting. Why do all the other quarterbacks, Emory, get more love than Leary?
Right.
Jurkovec, Van Dyke, Cunningham, Uiagalelei. Why is Leary like under the radar?
Because NC State was driving me crazy, and probably the rest of the country crazy. They were playing two quarterbacks. Remember, they kept, Leary would play a little bit, then they go to someone else, then they have to go back to Leary. It was almost like, and I'm not, saying he's this guy, but it was almost like the whole Tom Brady, Drew Henson scenario. Like, man, you got to go back to Leary to save the day. Why not just leave him out there? And so when they left him out there, he performed really well. This is a dark horse team in the ACC this year, NC State, if they can stay healthy on defense and be good as advertised on defense. But Leary can really ball, man. He's good. He's consistent. He finds a way to move the sticks. I think he does a great job in placing the ball down the field. His accuracy is really strong at the intermediate level. I think this dude has a chance to really, again, one place lists him as a senior, one place lists him as a junior. So who knows? But he's draft eligible. And he's someone that can really fly up the draft boards. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't understand why NC State was, fooling around with playing one guy, then play this guy, and this guy, it was always clearly the better player.
Is it fair to say, I mean, could he have a Pickett type of year? Like if any of these guys we're talking about, Van Dyke, Jurkovec, Cunningham, Uiagalelei, Leary, is there a guy that you think has the best chance to be like this year's Kenny Pickett, so to speak?
It would be Devin Leary because of tying the success of him to NC State and NC State potentially playing for the ACC title, kind of like what we saw last year with Pickett. Pitt's offense was excellent. Pitt got into the title game. They won the title game. So if that's the case, yes, Leary is the guy because otherwise, you kind of expect Uiagalelei to be a top talent because of his talent. You kind of expect Jurkovec to be, Jurkovec to be who he is because he was talked about before. Cunningham is Cunningham. We kind of know about him already, but the out of nowhere player that people need to talk more about is probably Leary. So yes, he would be the one to me that has that Pickett-like rise. If NC State can do what I think they potentially could do because of what's ahead of them, in terms of Clemson's offense is a question mark. He has a chance.
Yeah, he really does. Man, I didn't realize his stats were this good. Impressive. Let's get to another receiver down the street from Leary. That's Josh Downs in North Carolina.
He's fun to watch, man. He's an explosive player, dynamic receiver, their best receiver. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback this year as Howell is off to the NFL with the Commanders. But Downs is someone that could put the ball in the paint. So for me, whoever's going to be that guy, they have their guy already, their go-to guy in Downs. Downs might be the best receiver, arguably the best receiver in the ACC. I would say he is the best receiver in the ACC because now Addison is playing for USC out there on the West Coast. So Downs is the guy, the go-to guy in the ACC, and he's a big playmaker, explosive talent. Can hurt you in a multitude of ways as well.
Lastly, finally, an offensive lineman. We got one, Carter Warren from Pitt.
Hands, man. The hand usage is so good for him, and how he plays up front. And when you're able to use your hands well, you don't get surprised by these wide array of mad bohemian moves that these defensive linemen try to pull on you, because you're always going to be able to play the piano and find a guy, find a good spot, and get him up out the way. And that's what Warren does for Pitt. He's going to be counted on to be, the spearhead of that offensive line. And I know there's some other offensive linemen. There's a kid from Miami, Zion, I believe. There's some other good linemen out there, but I thought Warren, to me, is someone that people need to talk more about and how impactful he was up front to what Pitt was doing last year on offense. And one quarterback I forgot to mention too, Hartman. Again, Hartman, to your point, has been there out of Wake Forest, has been there forever.
Yeah.
And he's still listed as a redshirt junior on their website. What is going on?
He's good. Why don't people ever talk about him? He's good. He's smart. He's accurate. I like him too. Wow, ACC is loaded.
Loaded with quarterbacks, man.
Wow, this is fun. I love it. This gets me fired up for college football. I mean, heck, it'll be here in a little over a month, which is absolutely amazing. Make sure you're following Emory on social media at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. You can, of course, check me out at Ross Tucker NFL on any of them, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are at Ross Tucker Pod on Twitter as well as Instagram. And then make sure you watch the show, or at least check out the highlight clips of the other shows, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Other than that, the keg is kicked. I am all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.